Okay, so this will be part two of the reading of the apology. I thought I had until 6:30 in there, but I guess this time of year they close at 6. So I had to follow the laws of the Athenian Agora and leave. But behind me is where I just was, and so behind me you can imagine the ancient Agora and the law court. So, actually, 6 o'clock. Okay, so let's finish up the apology. So, setting aside the question of public opinion, there seems to be something wrong in asking a favor of a judge, and thus procuring an acquittal instead of informing and convincing him. So this is where Pierre Grimes gets to the point where I'm not just trying to get off and get free and get an acquittal, but I'm trying to convince the judges that my case is just and that doing philosophy is the right thing to do for a self and for Athens, for the city. Let me read that again. Setting aside the question of public opinion, there seems to be something wrong in asking a favor of a judge and thus procuring an acquittal instead of informing and convincing them. For their duty is not to make a present of a justice, but to give a judgment. And the judge, is sworn that they will judge according to the laws and not according to pleasure. And we ought not to encourage, nor should you allow yourselves to be encouraged in this habit of perjury. There can be no piety in that. So do not then require me to do what I consider myself dishonorable and impious and wrong, especially now when I am being tried for impiety on the indictment of Miletus. For if, O citizens of Athens, by force of persuasion and entreaty, I could overpower your oaths of judges, then I should be teaching you to believe that there are no gods, and in defending should simply convict myself on the charge of not believing in them. But that is not so, far otherwise. For I do believe that there are gods, and in a sense higher than that in which any of my accusers believe in them. And to you and to God I commit my cause, to be determined by you as is best for you and for me. But then he is convicted by the judges. So remember the information in the museum where there are either yes or no votes that they drop in a box. So he's convicted. There are many reasons why I am not mad or sad, O citizens of Athens, at the vote of condemnations. I expected it, and I am only surprised that the votes were so nearly equal, for I had thought that the majority against me would have been far larger. But now, had 30 votes gone either one way or the other, or over onto the other side, I should have been acquitted. And I may say, I think, that I have escaped Miletus. I may say more, for without the assistance of Anytus and Lycon, anyone else may see that he would not have had a fifth part of the votes as the law requires, in which case he would have incurred a fine of 1,000 drachma. And so he proposes death as the penalty, and what shall I propose on my part? So he was convicted, so I guess what the custom was, what the law is, the accusers propose a punishment, and then the person who was convicted proposes a counter punishment. So the accusers say that Socrates should die, be put to death, and this is going to be Socrates' speech for his counter proposal on what his punishment should be. And we'll see if it's actually a punishment. And what shall I propose on my part, O citizens of Athens? Clearly that which is my due. And what is my due? What return shall be made to the man who has never had the wit to be idle during his whole life, but has been careless of what the many care for, wealth, and my family interests, and military offices, and speaking in the assembly, and magistrates, and plots and parties, reflecting that I was really too honest a man to be a politician and live. I did not go where I could do no good to you or to myself, but where I could do the greatest good privately to every one of you. There I went, and I sought to persuade every person among you that you must look into yourself and seek virtue and wisdom before you look towards your private interests for greed or for power and things, and look to the state before you look to the interests of the state. And this should be the order in which you observe your actions. What shall be done to such a person as this? Doubtless, some good thing, O citizens of Athens. If this person has to have a reward, and the good shall be kind of suitable for him. What would a reward suitable to a poor man who is your benefactor and who desires leisure that he may instruct you? There can be no reward fitting as the maintenance in the Prytaneum. So this is a public hall in which really important people were maintained with room and board. So basically what he's saying here is that he should be put in like the Ritz-Carlton hotel for the rest of his life and everything, all his room and board and meals and everything should be paid for, so he has time to keep doing what he's doing, to keep doing philosophy. O citizens of Athens, a reward which he deserves far more than the citizen who has won the prize at the Olympics in the horse or chariot race, whether the chariots were drawn by 2 horses or by many. For I am in want, and he has enough. And he only gives you the appearance of happiness, and I give you the reality. And if I am to estimate the penalty fairly, I should say that maintenance at the Ritz-Carlton is my just penalty. Perhaps you think that I am braving you in what I say right now, as in what I said before about the tears and the prayers. But this is not so. I speak rather because I am convinced that I never intentionally wronged anyone. Although I cannot convince you, the time has been too short. If there were a law at Athens, as there are in other cities, that a capital cause, a death penalty case, should not be decided in only one day, then I believe that I would have convinced you. I would have got the 30 more votes. But I only had a short time. But I cannot in a moment refute a great slander. And as I am convinced that I never wronged anyone, I will assuredly not wrong myself. So he's saying he didn't do anything wrong, so he's not going to propose a penalty that hurts himself. I will not say of myself that I deserve any evil or propose any penalty. Why should I? Because I am afraid of the death penalty which Miletus proposes? When I do not know whether death is a good or an evil, why should I propose a penalty which will be a certain evil? Shall I say imprisonment? And why should I live in a prison and be the slave of the magistrates of the year of the 11? The 11 were the city police board. Or shall the penalty be a fine and imprisonment until the fine is paid? There is the same objection. I should have to lie in prison because money I have none, and I cannot pay. And if I say exile, and this may possibly be the penalty which you affix, I must indeed be blinded by the love of life, if I am so irrational as to expect that when you, who are my own citizens, cannot endure my questioning and my discourses, and words have found them to be so grievous and odious that you will have no more of them, others are likely to endure me in other cities and other countries? No, indeed, O citizens of Athens, that is not very likely. And what a life should I lead at my age, wandering from city to city, ever changing my place of exile, and always being driven out. For I am quite sure that wherever I go, there as here, the young people will flock to me and listen to my questioning. And if I drive them away, their elders will drive me out of their city at their request because they want to be around me listening to my questioning. But if I let them come and listen to my questioning, then their fathers and friends and the politicians will drive me out for their own sakes. They will say I'm corrupting them. So I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. Someone will say, yes, Socrates, but cannot you hold your tongue? And then you may go into a foreign city, and no one will interfere with you. Now I have great difficulty in making you understand my answer to this. For if I tell you that to do as you say would be a disobedience to the God, and therefore that I cannot hold my tongue, you will not believe that I am serious. And if I say again that daily to discourse about virtue and all those other things about which you hear me examining myself and others with questions is the greatest good of man, and the unexamined life is not worth living, you are still less likely to believe me. Yet I say what is true. Although a thing like this is hard for me to persuade you. Also, I have never been accustomed to think that I deserve to suffer any harm. Had I money, I might estimate the offense at which I was able to pay, like pay you a fine, and not have been much the worse. But I don't have any money, and therefore I must ask you to proportion the fine to my means. Well, perhaps I could afford a little bit of money, 1 minae, and therefore I propose that penalty. Plato, Crito, Critobulus, and Apollodorus, my friends here, bid me to say 30 minae, and they will pay. Let 30 minae be the penalty, for which sum they will be amply able to secure to you. So then they have another vote, and he's sentenced to death. This is his speech after he's sentenced to death. Not much time will be gained, O Athenians, in return for the evil name which you will get from the detractors of the city, who will say that you killed Socrates, a wise man, for they will call me wise, even though I am not wise. When they want to reproach you, if you had waited a little while, your desire would have been fulfilled in the courts of nature. For I am advanced in years, as you may perceive, and not far from death. I am speaking now to all of you, but not to all of you, but to only of those of you who have condemned me to death. And I have another thing to say to them. You think that I was convicted because I had no words of the sort which would have procured my acquittal. I mean, if I had thought fit to leave nothing unsaid or undone, but not so. The deficiency which led to my conviction was not of words, certainly not, but I had not the boldness or impudence or inclination to address you as you would have liked me to, weeping and wailing and lamenting, and saying and doing many things, and basically saying that he wasn't right and he shouldn't do philosophy. He won't say that. Weeping and wailing and lamenting, and saying and doing many things which you have been accustomed to hear from others in the court, and which, as I maintain, are unworthy of me. I thought at the time that I ought not to do anything common or mean when in danger, nor do I now repent of the style of my defense. I would rather die having spoken after my manner than speak in your manner and live. For neither in war nor yet at law ought I or any man to use every way of escaping death. Often in battle there can be no doubt that if a man will throw away his arms and fall on his knees before his pursuers, he may escape death. And in other dangers there are other ways of escaping death, if a man is willing to say and do anything. The difficulty, my friends, is not to avoid death, but to avoid unrighteousness. So the difficulty isn't to avoid death, but the difficulty is to do the right thing, for that runs faster than death. I am old and move slowly, and the slow runner has I am old and move slowly, and the slower runner has overtaken me, and my accusers are keen and quick, and the faster runner, the runners who are unrighteous. Unrighteousness has overtaken them. And now I depart, hence condemned by you to suffer the penalty of death. They too go their ways, condemned by the truth, and to suffer the penalty of villainy and wrong. And I must abide by my award, let them abide by theirs. I suppose that these things may be regarded as fated, and I think that they are. Well. And now, O citizens who have condemned me, I would fain prophesy to you, for I am about to die, and in the hour of death men are gifted with prophetic power. And I prophesy to you who are my murderers, that immediately after my departure, punishment far heavier than you have inflicted on me will surely await you. Me you have killed because you wanted to escape the accuser and not to give account of your lives. But that will not be as you suppose, far otherwise. For I say that there will be more accusers of you than there are now, accusers whom hitherto I have restrained, and they are younger and will be more inconsiderate with you, and you will be more offended at them. If you think that by killing people, you can prevent someone from censuring your evil lives, you are mistaken. That is not a way of escape which is either possible or honorable. The easiest and the noblest way is not to be disabling others, but to be improving yourselves. This is the prophecy which I utter before my departure to the judges who have condemned me. Friends who have acquitted me, I would also like to talk with you about the thing which has come to pass, while the magistrates are busy, and before I go to the place at which I must die. Stay a little while, and we may talk while there is still time. You are my friends, and I should like to show you the meaning of this event which has happened to me, O my judges. For you I may truly call judges. I should like to tell you of a wonderful circumstance. Hitherto the divine faculty, of which the internal oracle for me is the source that has constantly been at the habit of opposing me, even about little things, if I was going to make a slip or an error in any matter. And now, as you see, there has come upon me a big thing. So, the last and the worst evil is my death. But the oracle within me gave no sign of opposition, either when I was leaving my house in the morning, or when I was on my way to the court, or while I was speaking, or anything in which I was going to say. Yet I have often been stopped in the middle of a speech. But now, in nothing either I said or did touching the matter in hand has the oracle opposed me. What do I take to be the explanation of this silence? I will tell you. This is an intimation that what has happened to me is a good, and that those of us who think that death is an evil are in error. For the customary sign would surely have opposed me had I been going to an evil and not to a good. Let us reflect in another way, and we shall see that there is great reason to hope that death is a good. For one of two things, either death is a state of nothingness and utter unconsciousness, or, as people say, there is a change and a migration of the consciousness from this world to some other. Now, if you suppose that there is no consciousness, but a sleep like the sleep of those who is undisturbed in the deep sleep and not even dreaming, death would be an unspeakable gain. For if a person were to select the night in which their sleep was undisturbed by even dreams, and you had the best sleep ever, and compare this with the other days and nights of their life, and then were to tell us how many days and nights he had passed in the course of their life better and more pleasant than having this beautiful, dreamless sleep, I think that most people would say that not even a king would choose something else. Now, if death be of such a nature, I say that to die is a gain, for its eternal peace of one night. But if death is the journey to another place, and there, as people say, all the dead abide, what good, O my friends and judges, can this be? If indeed, when the pilgrim arrives in the world below, he is delivered from the professors of justice in this world, and finds the true judges who are said to give judgment there. And he mentions some people that have died, who are historically very wise figures. If this is true, let me die again and again and again. I myself too shall have a wonderful interest in being there, meeting and conversing with all of these famous people, all of these wise people that have died before me, and any other ancient hero who has suffered death through an unjust judgment. And there will be no small pleasure, as I think, in comparing my own suffering with theirs. Above all, I shall then be able to continue my search into true and false knowledge, as in this world, so also in the next. And I shall find out who is wise there, and who pretends to be wise, and who is not, and what would not a man give, O judges, to be able to examine the leader of the great Trojan expedition, or Odysseus, or Sisyphus, or numberless others, men and women too? What an infinite delight would be there in conversing with them and asking them questions. In another world, they do not put a man to death for asking questions. Assuredly not. For besides being happier than we are, they will be immortal, if what is said is true. Wherefore, O judges, be of good cheer about death, and know of a certainty that no evil can happen to a good person, either in life or after death. He and his are not neglected by the gods, nor has my own approaching end happened by mere chance. But I see clearly that the time had arrived when it was better for me to die and to be released from troubles in this world. Wherefore the oracle gave me no sign to stop me from what I was doing in my defense. For which reason also I am not angry with my condemners, or with my accusers. They have done me no harm, although they did not mean to do me any good, and for this I may gently blame them. Still I have a favor to ask of them. When my sons are grown up, I would ask you, O friends, to punish them, and I would have you trouble them as I have troubled you. And if they seem to care about riches, greed, or anything else more than virtue, or if they pretend to be wise about something when they are really not, then question them and reproach them and improve them, as I have improved you, for not caring about that for which they ought to care, and thinking that they are something when they are really nothing. And if you do this, both I and my sons will have received justice at your hands. The hour of departure has arrived, and we will go our ways, I to die, and you to live. Which is better, God only knows.